All right, and we are live here. Well, I'm not at the stadium, but Nate Ulrich from the Beacon Journal, the Beacon Journal's beat writer, Marla Ridenour, the columnist for the Beacon Journal, and Steve Doerschuk, the Browns beat writer for the Canton Repository, are all at First Energy Stadium where the Browns pulled off, I don't know whether to call it impressive or something else, but they ran the ball, they ran it well, and that's really what brought this one home. The two-headed monster is back with a vengeance. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt rushed for a combined 230 yards today. So,
yeah, I mean, this was Nick Chubb's first game back since October 4th. He missed 4 games with that sprained MCL, and he looked rusty for a lot of the game until really when it mattered most. He started turning those short yards into bigger yards, and then they fed him at the end of the team's lone touchdown drive. 4 consecutive carries. He got 35 yards, including the 9-yard touchdown on that. And then, of course, at the end of the game, he rips off the 59-yard game-clinching run, gets out of bounds instead of into the end zone to seal the win rather than, extend the game. So I thought Chubb was so impressive and he even said knocking the rust off. And Hunt, obviously, the 1-2 punch is amazing. We saw history. First time 2 Browns teammates had 100-plus rushing yards here. This is from the Browns from 1966. Ernie Green and Leroy Kelly did it then. Just an amazing performance on a really bad weather game. The Browns' second in a row in real nasty conditions.
I am kind of blown away that it's been since 1966. And it almost feels like Chubb and Hunt they always sort of play off each other, but it even seems like it's getting stronger. I mean, maybe it's their competitiveness, maybe the urgency as the season goes on. But I really feel like that duo is becoming even more determined in a way. Maybe it's because they've both been through injuries, Hunt playing with a broken rib, Chubb's bad knee. I don't know. It just seemed like chemistry is growing if that's at all possible.
In terms of Chubb and Hunt, what they did today is fantastic, and it bodes well for the future as a component in the offense. But in my view, it's not going to be nearly enough when the Browns get into games when wind isn't a factor, rain isn't a factor, and you need to do more than maintain a 3-0 lead for about an hour and 49 minutes. And therein, I think Baker Mayfield needs to be an important part of this post-game discussion. And, I'm making it mine because that was my point of emphasis during the game. It's kind of comparing Mayfield to one of the bright young quarterbacks that he has to face and measure up to as a number 1 overall pick. Of course, today, Watson, even though the Texans are having a terrible season, Watson statistically is having a good season, well over 100 in passer rating, and a pretty good player. What I found today was that Mayfield is a little bit tighter in the passing game that is available to him. And what was available today was only the short stuff. Each time, almost every time, either one of those guys tried to go more than 20 yards in the air with the pass today, the ball was getting sailed all over the place. But with what was available, I thought Mayfield was the better executor of the short passing game. Of course, he didn't have and will never have the component of turning 3rd and 5s into first downs with his legs the way Watson can. So that's where Mayfield was superior today is where he's going to need to continue to be superior against his opponents, and that is efficiency in the passing game.
So to be clear, because Steve, I know that the Raiders game was another bad weather game, and the Browns obviously, they got overpowered in that game. But I know you thought highly of Mayfield's game, and I'm just wondering how you think he stacked up Raiders game to this game. Was this as good for him?
I think, Nate, that Stefanski made the point afterward that they were completely different looking games. In a way, it didn't feel that way because we were both getting blown to Kansas by the wind of both those games. But I did think in that Las Vegas game that Mayfield played not just okay, but he played pretty well. And you add the two balls that Jarvis Landry dropped, easy catches. You add the easy catch that Njoku dropped, and maybe a couple of others, and that game looks completely different. And obviously, it also looks different if Chubb, Austin Hooper, and Wyatt Teller are in that game. So yeah, I think Mayfield has done pretty well in both of the last two games.
Yeah, I want to add one thing about Chubb too, bringing him up again. I did the math earlier, but I didn't know it off the top of my head, but I wrote about it. Before those 4 carries that ended the touchdown drive, he had run 13 times for 33 yards, 2.5 average. So that's what I mean. He found another gear when it mattered most late in the game, and I think, to Marla's point, I think Hunt fed off that. Hunt had a really good fourth quarter too, and the Texans were also worn down by all of this too. So I think, and talking with Kevin Stefanski and Baker Mayfield, they both kind of agreed that, all of those things were at play. Hunt and Chubb, they were hitting their stride, and the Texans were getting worn down by the rushing attack throughout the day. And I'm sure, the weather and everything else. So I just think that this was a huge step for the Browns, big picture wise, because we talked about it after the last game. They did not look like the team from Cleveland against the Raiders. And I thought today they look like the team from Cleveland.
Well, that being the case, in your opinion, and Steve brought this up before we got online here, is this a legitimate 6-3 record? Is it a strong 6-3 record at this point?
I think it's a respectable 6-3 in that you've handled the schedule that is in front of you, and it includes one signature win. I think from trying to loosely follow the other games today, if I'm not mistaken, Indianapolis won big against Tennessee, which is a good team. And that was in Nashville. So to me, that stands as kind of a signature win, an important win to say for the Browns to be able to say to themselves, hey, we're not just beating the schmoes. And even though Houston is weak and something's wrong with him today, you can almost tell the way Watson was playing today that something's out of kilter with those guys. Something's between their ears. But still, any team that has Deshaun Watson, a guy with a career passer rating and production like he has, to me, this was a really fine win. So it's and it's only going to take one more win, albeit against Philadelphia next week. And Philadelphia lost today, I believe, and they're not the Eagles that won the Super Bowl, but the accumulation of victories against teams that aren't having good seasons. You don't flush those. They mean something. You won a tough NFL game, and the Browns have. Now, all of their wins this year have been pretty tough in one way or the other, but they're getting them.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can't forget, Stefanski wants a smart, tough team, and except for 2 really wacko penalties that are mind-numbing, the Landry spike and the Mac Wilson spike of Randall Cobb. They do like they have some smart, tough guys. So, I do feel like when you've been this bad for this long, I don't think there is such a thing as an unimportant victory, I guess. Although I still think this 6-3 feels precarious, and especially if when Texans score with 5 minutes to go, didn't you all think that they were going to blow it? I certainly thought they were. So
I didn't think so.
I didn't. And it's weird because
you tempted, but I didn't think that. Yeah.
I haven't had that feeling for about 4 games. I think they've shown that, this isn't the same old Browns this year. That they absolutely have a shot from now on. People are expecting the worst, and more often than not, they're delivering the exact opposite. And it's kind of something to behold. It's kind of like being in the Twilight Zone, given the past. What was the last? 2007. So we're going back 13 years. So,
And
no,
Chubb's going to get stronger, George, as he comes back. Chubb's going to get stronger. And Nate, your point early in the conversation about him looking rusty. It was either rusty or he's just not physically ready. But, yeah, there were a couple of ankle tackles that got made and corners that didn't get turned. And what's kind of like, where did that come from when he popped that big one on the last series? And you guys saw that the coaching staff was smart in not pushing the issue with Chubb. That long carry on that last drive was his only carry on that drive.
Right. And, Wyatt Teller coming back, Austin Hooper coming back. I think, and Stefanski's talked about this for a long time, just the way Hooper shows up in the running game that we don't see in the stat line has been huge this year. So I think with these guys coming back, of course, Chubb's the focus, but they didn't disappoint in that. I think they were all crucial in this team winning the style of game that they lost 2 weeks ago. So, as far as the record, George, my bottom line is, you definitely got to look better and play better and be competitive with Pittsburgh and Baltimore to really take a step here. But, yeah, you also have to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat to make the playoffs for the first time since 2002. So let's give them credit for taking care of business in these types of games.
Let's see, and here's the operative question as far as I'm concerned. Does that defense continue to play the way they played today?
Well, that's a great question. And I know, George, you've had a pretty good record of picking, but I believe –
Yeah, I know. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it.
No. It's a fair point. I think we all felt this way. You wrote that you picked the Texans, but the reason why is because you were not seeing enough defense from the Browns. And yeah. I had a hard time picking the Browns. I did pick the Browns, but I went back and forth, and I ultimately just landed on Nick Chubb coming back. And when I was out there Wednesday and Thursday at practice, I felt an energy coming off the bye. Guys were running around and yelling. They seemed like they were having fun. I just like the vibe around the team with some key guys, including Chubb, coming back. But I was torn because I agree. I didn't know if this defense was going to be able to contain Watson. And let's be honest, I mean, the elements contained the passing games of both teams in big ways today. Yeah. So that helped the Browns, obviously, in a big way. But, yeah, I don't know. I mean, the defense, there's not a lot of evidence that you're going to be able to rely on it.
That's the key for me. Myles Garrett's fourth down play.
Huge.
It's like that's the type of play that a Browns team from a couple years ago would have given up, even though with that quarterback, it's so freaking obvious what they were going to do.
Yeah, sometimes it doesn't matter, right? With an electric talent like that, he scores anyway.
And they collapsed. It was a sight to behold. They collapsed the interior of that line, and they let their playmaker clean it up on the outside. And it's like, oh, okay, that's impressive. And I wouldn't have seen that coming this year. It would have been a foregone conclusion. So
kind of a stunning moment there, George. I mean, for Houston to take a 7-3 lead there, I think a team with the psychology, the Browns coming off a bad home loss against Las Vegas, I think their whole psychology is different. If all of a sudden in a bad weather day, they're behind 7-3 instead of they getting buoyed by keeping a 3-0 lead, and it was free money right there.
I don't think they've got the defense to win a playoff game right now, but there's time for that to come. I mean, especially if they get some more help from the other defensive linemen, that's what they've been needing is someone else, a few more guys to step up and help Myles Garrett. So there was a smidgen of hope for that today. And I thought the defensive line played well. So, but like I said, I don't think they can play like this and win a playoff game, but I think they can get there.
Yeah, and the Texans, again, it's a combination of factors, in my opinion. The Texans' offensive line is not good outside of Tunsil. And, you talk to people from Houston, and they'll tell you that it's just not an impressive group. So that obviously played into the Browns' favor. They've got a lot of talent up front. The D-line, I think, is underachieved for most of the season other than Garrett. But I was asking Sheldon Richardson about this, and he said that the bye week did that group a lot of good, and he thinks that it showed up today with he felt healthier and some other guys. He made some plays, obviously. So, that's what they're going to need. They're going to need the defense to take some steps like they did on that big fourth down play to have a chance. But I agree. Winning a playoff game is a whole different discussion than making the playoffs. And I still think making the playoffs is huge for this franchise.
At all due respect, I think if that happens, that the city of Cleveland and Northeast Ohio will be drunk for several days. So, at this point, it's I won't call them baby steps, but they're intermediate steps. Let's call them toddler steps.
Yeah. So you think in making the playoffs, everybody will be drunk, right?
Yeah, I do. I really
do. So right, yeah. So by the time the game arrives, they might not even know what's going on.
Very true. All right, guys. Next week it's the Philadelphia Eagles. Carson Wentz, who everybody thought the Browns should have drafted, is the shine off's him right now. And then you're right. The Eagles don't look like that Super Bowl team that took on the Patriots a few years back. So we'll see what happens, but hope springs eternal, right? At least
Absolutely.
for Cleveland fans. So with that, we're going to sign off. You guys have a safe trip home. And we'll see some of you tomorrow, metaphorically speaking. Have a good night.
Hey, guys.
Good night.
Yep.